Now, options are different from forwards in the sense that forwards have a linear profit and loss, that if the stock price goes up or the asset goes up, then there is profit. If it comes down, there is loss. But for options, even though the profit is there, the loss is limited. There is a non-linear payoff. So a key distinction between forwards and options is that forward buyers enter into a contract with no cash paid upfront and has an unlimited gain or loss, whereas for an option buyer there is an upfront premium, and they will only exercise the option if it is in the money, which means if it is going to give them a profit, then only they are going to exercise, otherwise they are not going to exercise the option. And this is what they pay the premium for. So there is a conditional nature of payoff, which means if it is in profit, then they will get the profit. If it is in loss, then they are not going to exercise, which means that there is going to be an upper and lower no arbitrage price bound for any option at any given point in time. Now, what does that mean? Let's talk about the Tesla example again, that the stock price has gone to 2000 and we have the right to buy it at 1000. So this option, if we exercise right now, can give us approximately $1,000, right? So, I mean, the value of this option should be at least $1,000, right? So this is, you can say, the minimum or the lower bound should be at least $1,000. And if this is happening during the life of the contract, then we need to obviously calculate the present value of this price that we have to pay, which will be dividing it by 1 plus r to the power big T minus small t, where this is big T, which is the end of the contract, and if we are here in the middle somewhere, then that is small t. So then that this difference is big T minus small t, and this $1,000 we will have to pay at the end of the contract. So we bring it back to today, and we do that by discounting it. That is, we divide it by 1 plus r to the power big T minus small t. And this is what you see happening over here. So the lower bound or the minimum value of any option will be the exercise value. So the lower bound is the exercise value, and the exercise value is either going to be 0 or positive, depending if the stock price or the asset price is above the exercise price. And of course, we are going to take time value of money into account if this is happening during the life of the option. And approximately, let's say this is something between maybe $900 approximately. So, or $1,000 or $1,100, whatever it is. The point is, this is the minimum. This is the minimum that the option should be worth. And if it is worth less than that, then there is going to be an arbitrage opportunity, because you can buy the option and exercise and get more. So let's say this option is worth 1,100, right? The exercise value is 1,100 and it's available in the market for 900. Then what people can immediately do is they will buy this because it's below the minimum. The minimum should be the exercise value, which is, let's say, 1,100, the difference between these two. And if the option is trading at below the minimum value, let's say 900, then immediately people will buy it and exercise the option, and this will create an arbitrage condition, right? So this is basically the lower bound. What about the maximum or the upper bound? So naturally, if the stock price is at 2,000, nobody is going to pay more than $2,000 for the right to buy an asset, right? What is an option? It is the right to purchase the underlying asset. So if you have to pay 2,000, you might as well just purchase the asset. Why buy the right to buy the asset, right? So this is the maximum, which is the price of the underlying asset, which sets the upper bound for the call option value, that nobody is going to pay the right to purchase an asset and pay as much as the asset price itself. I mean, if they have to pay that much, they'll just buy the asset directly. So this option value, at the top it is bounded by the asset price itself, and at the bottom it is bounded by the exercise value of the option. This is for call options. The same thing is there for put options. The only difference is that instead of S minus X, what we have over here is X minus S. And naturally we are discounting the exercise value back to today, which is big T minus small t. And the upper bound is not the stock price here, but the put price at which you have the right to sell. So let's talk about a practical example. Let's say we have the right to sell Tesla shares at $1,000 and the stock price goes down to 200. Now the exercise value over here will be 1000 minus 200, and this 1000 naturally we will discount back to today's value, and let's say this comes to approximately $700. Now $700 is the lower bound. That means if you exercise this option right now, which is buying in the market for 200 and selling at 1000, you can approximately get a $700 profit. So obviously this option will not be trading in the market for lower than its exercise value, and it will also not be trading in the market for higher than its exercise price, because I mean that's the maximum amount of money you can get from that option, because it has the right to sell at that much. So you're not going to pay more than that to get a right to sell at that much. So for a put option, the maximum is the exercise price and the minimum is the exercise value. Let's look at an example. Let's say we have a 1-year call option, exercise price of 1000 euros, stock the spot price right now is 990, and since it's a call option, then we are going to have S minus X. S is 990, X is 1000. Underlying what are the no arbitrage upper and lower bounds in this situation? If the spot price has now gone up to 1050, so spot price has gone up to 1050, so naturally this is in the money, but how many months are left? 6 months are still left, so we will need to divide this or bring it back to today, which is big T minus small t, and this will be the exercise value, and which will provide the lower bound, and the upper bound will be the stock price itself, which is 1050. Let's look at the solution, and this is exactly what it is, that the exercise value is 554.96, which is going to be the lower bound, and the upper bound is the stock price itself. Now let's get into the concepts of replication. Now, by the way, this is complicated, and you're not going to learn a lot about this at CFA level 1. There is going to be more details at CFA level 2 for replication of options, because it is actually not easy to do that, and even if you do it, it is a dynamic process which you have to keep updating. So you will learn more about dynamic hedging using options at CFA level 2. For the time being, let's just have a high level discussion about option replication. So to replicate a call option, which means the right to buy an asset, what we could do is we could borrow money and we could buy that asset, right? So if, for example, a call option has a payoff like this, that if the spot price goes up, then you have a profit. But the problem is when the spot price comes down, the option loss is limited, but that will not be the case over here if you're borrowing to buy the asset and you're buying the asset, and if the asset goes down, then naturally you will have a loss, which is not the case with the option. So as far as the upside is concerned, which assumes that the spot price or the stock price will be greater than the exercise price, that part we can replicate, right? That part we can easily replicate, because we can borrow money and buy the asset, and if the asset price goes up, then we will be able to sell it at a higher price, and it will be above our cost, and we will have no we will have profits, just like the option would have as well. And in case the spot price goes below the exercise price, then no settlement is required, so obviously the profit will not be there for the option, and it will also not be there for our position. But what about the loss of our position? Because obviously we would have borrowed money, and we have to now pay back that money. So let's say we borrowed $1,000 to buy the asset, and we bought the asset, and now the asset has fallen to $500. So what about our loss? So this process is actually managed through a dynamic replication process, and again, this will be discussed in more detail at level 2. What I will tell you right now is that this process is dynamic. So if exercise was certain, which means if the spot price for sure was going to be above the exercise price, we could very easily just borrow money and buy the asset, right? And if we have to, let's say, pay $1,000 for the asset after a few days, then what you need to borrow right now is this much. And this would be in the case of a forward. But for an option, since the exercise is not certain, it is only a one-way conditional situation, that if it goes up, the exercise is there, but if it goes down, the exercise is not there. So that's why what we do is we don't borrow the whole amount, and we don't borrow the whole assets. So let's say if the option is for 1,000 shares of Tesla, then when we are replicating, we might not do 1,000 shares, we might do 500 shares only. And how do we calculate this 500 amount? This is done through a process called delta hedging, which you will learn in level 2. For the time being, you just need to know that we don't borrow and buy the whole number of shares. We borrow only a portion of that, depending on the likelihood of the exercise, and that depends on the moneyness of the option, that how close the spot price is to the exercise price, and is it actually in the money or not. And that is what determines how we will replicate the transaction. And this has to be continually adjusted, by the way. It's not a one-time thing, because the moneyness of the option keeps changing, and the likelihood of exercise keeps changing, and based on that, the amount of shares that we have, that we are using to replicate the trade, keeps changing. So whereas in a forward the number of shares remains constant, for an option the number of shares are dynamic, and that is all you need to know at this level. For put option, the situation is similar, that it is giving you the right to sell an underlying asset. So what we do is we will short sell the asset, which is we'll borrow the asset and we will short sell it in the market, and whatever cash we will get, we will invest it at the risk-free rate. Now if the asset goes down, we will make money, and that is what happens in a put option as well. If the asset price goes down, the profit is there, and that is exactly what will be there in a short as well. If the asset will go down, we will make money. However, if the asset will go up, in the put option, we will not have losses, because we will not exercise the put option, and there will be a controlled situation over here. However, if you are going to short a stock and if it will go up, then you will have a loss. Therefore, again over here, we are not going to short all of the shares. So let's say if the option is for 1,000 shares, we may be going to short 500. And how this 500 is calculated is again that dynamic process which you will learn about at level 2, and this keeps changing depending on the probability that the option will be exercised. However, the upside or the profitability is same for both, that if the spot price will be less than the exercise price, then there will be a profit in the option, and it will also be there in the replicated position where we have short sold the stock, and we will gain from that. Again, if exercise was certain, we would short sell 100% of the shares, but since exercise is not certain, because it is an option and not a forward, and exercise is not certain, therefore we only will short sell a portion of the shares, and how much that is based on the likelihood of the exercise, and the replicating transaction has to be adjusted dynamically based on the likelihood of the exercise as that changes. And that, or by the way, just for your interest, is to do with option Greeks like delta and gamma, and I hope to teach this to you at CFA level 2.